States.
What's the position of the Israeli government, and insofar as you can make out the belief of the Israeli people, Mr. Ambassador, now, it's a case of being reassured that the United States is doing all it can, not only to end the war with Iraq, but to defend Israel?
Well, first of all, we are reassured by what America is doing, and we never doubted that America is doing the very best it can, and I'm sure they will be successful. We hope they will be successful. We never asked America or anybody else to defend ourselves, to defend Israel, nor are we going to ask American soldiers to defend us in the future. We have now received the tools, the Patriots, which will enable us to defend ourselves better against these Scud missiles. As you know, there is an American team. There are American soldiers manning these Patriots, but only on a very temporary basis. I think it's a matter of weeks or less till the Israeli team will be ready to do that. We don't want Americans to fight for us.
Israel's ambassador to the United States. Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. The Iraqi missile attacks on Israel have so far caused no deaths, but the continuing fear and uncertainty associated with the threat are taking a toll. CBS News correspondent Bill McLaughlin reports from Tel Aviv.
Sirens over Tel Aviv. An overture to another Scud missile attack. It's a new kind of war for Israelis. The first time since independence that Israel's cities and civilians have been on the front line, facing a supersonic Iraqi blitz. It's turned Tel Aviv into a ghost town, forcing people like the Gross family to become prisoners in their own homes.
Of course, the children don't go to school. We don't go to work. We are here with the children it's the third day already.
Into rooms where the doors and windows are sealed tight with plastic, and where your gas mask is never out of reach. An almost unreal world where the family's favorite television program is the almost instant replays on the news of the missile attack that could have wiped it out. It's a world where children now listen to mom and dad, but there's little joy in that.
I mean, we have been to wars, we have heard explosions before. This is the first one that we go through with children around us, and that's the source of anxiety.
In this new reality of the Gross family and all the families of Israel, even the simplest of children's questions can have a tragic edge.
After the war, would you go with me to the toy shop? Yes, I said, yes, I promise you. And he said, oh, well, if we are all alive by that time.
Inside the shelter, 12-year-old Itai is learning to control his fears.
Because of everybody was in here, and we could see television, and we hear the radio, so it wasn't so bad. And also we had our cat with us.
His 7-year-old sister, Rivi, exercises her fear by turning the war into pretty pictures.
The colors are very optimistic. It's the way of making it more closer to her world, to get some control over the situation.
Sippy, a trained psychologist, has a theory about what this crisis is doing to her children.
I think it is going to strengthen them in a way. I think every crisis, if you are strong enough to go over the crisis, to survive, you are coming out of the crisis a stronger person.
Saddam Hussein may be unwittingly creating a new generation of Israelis that future Saddams would do well to avoid.
He's dangerous to everybody. You cannot give him to be alive and free because you don't know what he will do. He can come to you in 2 days more and tell you, you are Jewish, I don't want you to be alive, and he can kill you. This is what I think we have to do to him. But maybe not, because now we are missing school and it's fun.
Bill McLaughlin, CBS News, Tel Aviv.
For many Americans, the war meant preparing for the worst, for possible bombings and other terrorist attacks. In Toledo, Ohio, a hardware store virtually sold out its supply of gas masks in the days after the war started.
Good morning, Windows Class.
It's good for 6 hours. After those 6 hours, you need to replace the filter.
Yesterday, every other phone call was either for gas mask or for maps of Saudi Arabia. Since the invasion, we've gone through, in this past week, we've gone through literally 350 or more bottles of water purification tablets, which is just simply a an iodine treatment for the water. Gas mask, we received 36 this past Thursday. They're gone. They were gone yesterday. This is what the Israeli gas mask is here. The suppliers are literally taking advantage of the situation because their prices are skyrocketing. The cost of gas masks has actually tripled within the last week.
Yes.
You got the last one.
Last one. What I have in here right now is a gas mask, flashlight with extra batteries, and of course the poncho top. But now I want to add a little bit of canned food. I'd like to find some sea rations to put in here. Good old military food.
In New York City, even the fashionable decided that a gas mask might be a useful, if not becoming, accessory.
Why should you leave it to
Because
party?
if this goes on national television, then everybody is going to be running around getting these things.
War talk around America, for and against, on the streets, in the coffee shops, as you saw, in the boutiques, and on the gridiron. More about it when our special report continues. 2 F-4 jet pilots reported missing previously have been found in Saudi Arabia. So far, it has been mostly an air war. Some skirmishes up near the Kuwaiti border, but so far, nearly all of it an air war. And according to the Defense Department, it is going according to plan. James Hattori in Saudi Arabia is with some of the pilots and the all-important ground crews that support the war in the sky.
Daybreak brought a change in deployment of Air Force fighter jets from central Saudi Arabia. As F-15 Strike Eagles returned from their missions, F-16s from National Guard units in Syracuse, New York, and Columbia, South Carolina took to the early morning skies, their pilots filled with assured determination.
Been very fortunate fellow. Led a really swell life. Lord blessed me with a good woman. He made me an American fighter pilot.
This is what we're here for right there. That's what it's all about.
The F-16s, along with a squadron of F-15Cs from Bitburg, Germany, constituted the second wave of U.S. aircraft scrambled from this, the Air Force's largest base of operations in the theater. Many of their bombs personalized with messages scribbled on them by crewmen. Bye-bye Baghdad, Saddam, this one's for you, to Baghdad Betty. By late morning, most of the F-15 pilots had returned to the congratulations of their comrades. Still ahead, refueling and rearming for yet another mission. While officials have said they expect few casualties during an airstrike, reports of downed aircraft are not likely to be disclosed early on for fear of jeopardizing any possible rescue attempt. As one senior Air Force commander put it, if we lose one, we're going after him. The squadrons of F-15 Strike Eagles, which flew the initial devastating overnight sorties, returned to base, apparently all accounted for. They've been rearmed, but most will likely sit out the daylight until it's determined whether their special night flying skills are needed again. James Hattori with the 4th Tactical Fighter Wing, Central Saudi Arabia.
The fighting in the Gulf has evoked echoes. Some recall the Vietnam War, Operation Arclight and Rolling Thunder. Others recall the Blitz and saturation bombing in World War II. CBS News Chief Washington correspondent Bob Schieffer has another parallel.
Dan, the successes in the early part of this air war are a reminder of a war 24 years ago. We call that one the Six-Day War, and the historic parallels are remarkable.
Operation Desert Storm began with dramatic victories in the sky.
It looks that it is a very successful first strike. It's an almost unbelievable success.
He should know Itzhak Rabin was chief of staff of the Israeli Armed Forces during the Six-Day War. It too began with swift and successful air attacks. Major General Aharon Yariv is the former chief of Army Intelligence.
Our airstrike was successful because we caught the air forces, the 3 air forces, on the ground, and just shot the planes up.
In the first days of the war, Israel destroyed more than 400 planes. They were laid out on airfields in Egypt, Jordan, Syria, and Iraq.
In comparison with what the U.S. Air Force and its allies in the air had to do, it was easy. As a lesson of the war, all Arab air forces, important air forces, have shelters, underground shelters for their planes. And this is a great advantage to them and a great disadvantage to the attacker.
With the skies secured, Israeli forces moved on to a swift victory and to reclaim Jerusalem.
It takes time, exactly. That's where the the important factor is time to do all this, to carry it out, to pound these into smithereens, to pound all these installations, all these preparations into smithereens.
But this time we don't know how much of the Iraqi Air Force has been destroyed, how much still exists. So we want to ask our consultant, retired Air Force General Mike Dugan, why that is, and really, General, what effect does it have?
Well, one thing that Air Forces all over the world learned from watching that war is the importance of shelters. And indeed, shelters have grown up all over the world in combat areas. And the Iraqis have, in fact, followed a sheltering strategy. They've taken a larger part of their Air Force and put them away. We'd sort of like them to come out from their shelters and come up, flush up where we can get them. On the other hand, they've given us general air superiority over much of Iraq by hunkering down in their shelters.
Thank you, General. I suppose what that means, Dan, is that while the Great Short War took 6 days, a lot of Americans probably thought this one would be even shorter, but we now know it's going to be longer.
Thanks, Bob and General Dugan. A report from the Heartland on some young men with a very special reason to root for American fighters in the Gulf when we come back.
Well, Dan, I met with Ambassador Chauvel today, and we had a very serious discussion about the restraint that Israel has shown. And I think she has shown great restraint. And as a matter of fact, I really think that the Patriot missile systems that we have sent over there is a recognition of our need not only to ask them to show restraint, but to help them in the defending against these mindless attacks. And I think that we've gone a long way towards showing very clearly to the entire world and the coalition that so many say might be threatened, that indeed the United States, and I think Lee would agree with me, that the vast majority of the Congress strongly supports a strong and a free and a secure Israel, and that we are their ally, their staunchest ally. We recognize their relationship, and that we're going to defend them if that is necessary. Now, they cannot concede the right to make a retaliatory strike. However, I think they have shown every indication of going that extra mile, so to speak, to avoid giving Saddam Hussein that propaganda that he's looking for. But make no mistake about it, if Saddam continues to undertake those strikes, and God forbid it involve the use of chemical weapons, the Israelis will retaliate. And of course, I thought a target of opportunity that should not be discounted would be Saddam Hussein himself. They do have probably about as good an intelligence system in that area, as limited as it may be as you possibly can, and they may be able to command the assets sufficient to go after Saddam himself.
Senator, thank you. Congressman Hamilton, a French spokesman, said today he expected that the war could last about 6 months. Is that what you're being told by the Defense Department?
I don't think they're trying to make any predictions. We're in the early phases of the war, according to their view. They fully expect other phases to follow. We all hope that it will be short and sweet and quick with minimum casualties, but I think we'd be very premature and showing a great overconfidence if we were trying to predict a quick war. 6 months would be a very long war, in my judgment, and we certainly hope it can be shorter than that.
Do you expect conscription, the draft, to be necessary if the war were to go, let's say, as long as 5 or 6 months?
Well, let's be clear that at this point in time, the President is not recommending a draft. The Congress is not discussing a draft. All of the projections we've had from the Department of Defense indicates that they can meet their manpower needs with the current law. So the draft really is not under consideration. If you had a very, very extended war, which none of us expect and of course none of us want, then perhaps we'd have to reconsider that. But politically,